Lights, camera, action.
Hello, friends.
Hello.
I'm Jon,
I'm Emily.
and this is Married to Movies. We hope you guys enjoyed our episode last week where we talked about Toy Story 3.
Yes.
Such a great movie.
It
If
is.
you like Pixar, if you like Disney, if you're a really big Woody or Buzz Lightyear fan, you should definitely go check that episode out. We had a lot to say,
Yes.
and it was a lot of fun. That, honestly, I would say is a movie that was probably very formative for both you and I, very impactful as far as our childhood goes. It just kind of feels like one of those banner movies, that I look back on growing up. It's a really, really good one. So if you haven't listened to that yet, what are you doing? Go check it out. Go listen to it, and we hope you guys enjoy. But this week, we are talking about No Time to Die. It is the final Daniel Craig movie as 007, and we're really excited to talk about it today. So we hope you guys enjoy. Thank you for joining us, and take us away, Em.
All right. So No Time to Die was released on October 8th of 2021. I'm going to butcher this name, I'm sure, but it was directed by Kari Joji Fukunaga. I'm going to guess how to say it.
And despite the name and subsequent pronunciation, did you know that he was the first ever American director of a 007 film?
I did not know that.
So yes, he is obviously of Asian descent, but he is an American native, and he the first ever American-born director of a James Bond movie.
Very interesting.
Yes.
Like James Bond movie ever or just the Daniel Craig ones?
No, ever.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay. Well, moving on. The cast is starring Daniel Craig. I think it's Rami Malek, Lashana Lynch, Leah Seydoux, Naomi Harris, Ana de Armas, Ben Whishaw, Ralph Fiennes is I think how you say his name, or Fiennes, or
I've heard it pronounced different ways. We're just going to roll with it.
okay, Billy Magnuson and Jeffrey Wright.
Love Jeffrey Wright.
Yes, me too. This was distributed by Universal Pictures and United Artists Releasing. It has a runtime of 2 hours and 43 minutes. It is rated PG-13. Its budget was $250 million, and the box office total was $774.3 million.
In the middle of kind of still
COVID.
a COVID world with movie theaters and everything. So
Yes.
that's very, very good.
Yeah,
they,
for sure.
I mean, they almost broke $1 billion, and the movie theaters weren't like fully back to where they should be.
Right.
So yeah, that was pretty awesome.
Yeah. So I'll dive into some fun facts. I didn't find a ton, but it's a good amount. So first one, to create the frozen lake scene, the crew brought in actual ice taken from a Norwegian lake to make it more authentic.
Really?
So it was real ice, which makes me wonder, like, if that girl was actually underneath there or if it was CGI animated, but that had to be freezing water. I'm going to guess they probably didn't have her actually go under the ice in the water, but I truly don't know.
I feel like they might have. I mean, if they went as far as bringing real ice in.
Yeah, you might be right.
Obviously, like, being underwater beneath ice is very dangerous, but in a controlled environment, if there were divers down there and everything.
That, or maybe like they just had her fall in, but not like actually underneath. I don't know, but
yeah, it's very interesting.
Yes. My next fact is that Ana de Armas put in a lot of training for this film. She did extensive training with firearms, including machine guns, and she did lots of physical combat training too. And on that note, let me find it here. She was so worried that her action sequences would not be good enough, though, despite all of her training, because it was only 3 weeks of training, and she shared in an interview, I kept telling Carrie, I just have 3 weeks of training. And I said it so many times that he said, say that in the movie. So that's where that line came from.
Oh, that's
when she says,
awesome.
I've had 3 weeks of training.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Not to get too off track here, but since you're talking about her right now, Ana de Armas in this movie is phenomenal.
I love her.
She really is probably one of my favorite actresses right now in Hollywood. Everything that she's done has been really solid work. She does not come from like a Hollywood acting background. Actually, her very first movie was a movie that you and I watched a few years ago, War Dogs, which actually we mentioned in a podcast a couple weeks ago with Jeff Strickland. It's a Jonah Hill, Miles Teller movie. That was her very first movie. She actually didn't speak English. I don't remember her heritage. Forgive me. I think she's Cuban by descent. Anyway, she did not speak very good English, but she took the job anyways and learned English for that role. And since then, I mean, that movie was really good. And every movie she's done has been phenomenal. Blade Runner 2049, Knives Out, she did this. She was in one of the John Wick movies. And I wanted to get here specifically because she was in one of the John Wick movies, and she's now here soon going to be leading her own action movie that's set in the John Wick universe. We have not watched any of the John Wick movies.
I want to.
Yeah, I'd like to too. We like Keanu Reeves, and also John Wick is very much not like the same character as James Bond by any means, but he's of kind of the same world, that action, espionage, crime type world. So anyways, Ana de Armas's character in this movie is fantastic. I love her action sequences, and her chemistry with Daniel Craig is fantastic. Like, they just have a very lighthearted playfulness that's, I feel like often uncommon in the Bond movies, at least between him and a female. And I just like, all of her sequences are fun. She's a very likable character. She feels relatable just because of just kind of like that, oh, I've only had 3 weeks of training, you know, and stuff like that. I really, really enjoy her character. It was a very unexpected addition to the movie, and it's so cool to see her have a role that's pretty minor in this movie, but like done so well to now, like, she's leading her own action movie, Ballerina, if I didn't say that already. So anyways, I think that's super cool.
Well, on that same note, Daniel Craig actually personally handpicked her to play Paloma in this movie after working with her on Knives Out, which actually Knives Out only released like 4 months before No Time to Die was originally meant to release. It ended up getting pushed back quite a bit because of COVID-19, but yeah, I wish she would have gotten more screen time. I really do enjoy her in this movie and just enjoy her as an actress, but yeah, she did a good job.
That's cool that Daniel Craig handpicked her for this.
My next fact is that Rami Malek forgot his lines when he first saw Daniel Craig as James Bond. In an interview, he said that he kind of realized it in his head. He was just saying to himself, like, oh, this is because I'm looking straight at James Bond. He said, I couldn't handle it. It isn't the first time that this has happened, though. As far as just actors forgetting their lines because of an influential character. Do you know the other time?
I mean, I'm sure there are a lot of other times, but the only other time that I'm aware of is, well, actually, I can think of a couple.
Yeah, you're right.
Times.
I shouldn't have phrased it that way. There are several times. I'm thinking of one like with a major actor in movie.
I believe Joaquin Phoenix on the set of Gladiator, but
you might be right, but that's not the one I'm referring to. I'll tell you.
Okay, yeah, please go ahead.
It is when Michael Caine was in The Dark Knight.
Oh, and Heath Ledger showed up. Yes, I
Yes.
do remember that one. Yeah, he was like, he said in interviews that he was genuinely terrified when he entered the room.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
So my next fact is, I'm going to quote this from a website called Screen Rant, which is where I get a lot of my facts. It said, No Time to Die follows on from Spectre in a way that few other Bond follow-ups do, as it's much more of a direct sequel given that Dr. Madeline Swan is prominently featured. But the director, Cary however you say his last name, wanted it to be even more connected to the 2015 movie originally. In Spectre, a needle is injected into Bond's head where he is supposed to forget everything. But Carey's original twist took this even further by having his escape in that movie along with the first 2 acts of the new movie to all just be inside Bond's head. So,
oh wow.
It said it's a surprise that he still got the directing gig after pitching such a wacky and experimental idea. But that would definitely be interesting.
Yeah, it feels almost maybe a little too highbrow.
Yeah. I think it would have made me really mad. Like after watching like a bunch of like crazy stuff happening and then realizing, oh, he just imagined it.
Right. No, I agree 100%. And also, Spectre is a very mixed Bond movie in terms of its reception. I'm glad that it didn't feel as connected to it. Like it's still obviously very connected, but it doesn't feel like it's so rooted in it that I don't know. What the idea that he pitched feels too connected for me and too highbrow. I'm glad that they didn't go that direction.
Yeah, me too. Okay, I just have a few more. Next, Daniel Craig injured his ankle by slipping during the shoot in Jamaica in May of 2019, and it required a minor surgery. He said in an interview that the accident was so unnecessary because he wasn't performing a stunt or doing anything like physically dramatic. He just tripped while he was walking and broke his ankle.
Stinks.
So the media at the time reported that he was performing an action scene and that's how he did, but he discredited that and said, no, I was just walking and tripped.
That stinks.
Yeah. And then this is another quote. This is from IMDb. It says, this film is Daniel Craig's 5th and final appearance as James Bond. Released in 2021, the movie is also Craig's 15th year and tenure as James Bond since his first in Casino Royale, which was released in 2006. By tenure, this makes Craig the longest-running actor playing James Bond in the official series. Connery's tenure is the longest if you count the period between Dr. No, which was released in 1962, and the unofficial Never Say Never Again in 1983, albeit with breaks totaling a 21-year time span. So technically, Daniel Craig had the longest time, but
there's a non-canon movie that Connery was in. Yeah, okay. Very interesting.
And then my last one, last week kind of put me on the same mindset, I guess, when I was looking up like the Toy Story movies ranked on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah.
So I did look up all the Daniel Craig James Bond movies ranked, and I have put them in order based on critic scores, but I also have audience scores for you.
Okay.
So do you have a guess of what the best one was actually according to critics and audience?
Okay. I'm going to guess Skyfall.
Wrong.
Casino Royale?
Yes.
Okay. Is Skyfall second?
Skyfall is second for critics.
Okay. All right. Fair. So for critics, it's second. I'm going to guess that... I'm going to guess that Spectre is third for critics?
Wrong.
No Time to Die.
No Time to Die.
Good. That was my hope. That was very much my hope. Okay.
Yes.
And then Spectre's fourth.
Correct.
And Quantum of Solace is last.
Correct.
Deservedly so.
Yes. So, yeah, the only difference between critics and audience is Skyfall and No Time to Die are swapped.
Really?
So audiences liked No Time to Die just a little bit better than Skyfall.
Wow.
So
very interesting.
I'll go ahead and run through the actual percentages just so people can know. Casino Royale, for critics score, got 94%. It had a 90% audience score. Skyfall had a 92% critic score, 86% audience. No Time to Die was 83% critics, 88% audience. Spectre was 63% critics, 61% audience. The critic score actually tied between Spectre and Quantum of Solace. They both got a 63.
Okay.
And then the audience was 58 for Quantum of Solace.
Yes, I agree wholeheartedly.
So
That movie is an F. 53% is accurate. Oh, boy. Okay, well, that's very interesting. I would not rank them that way.
I wouldn't either.
Although I love Casino Royale. It's a great movie. It's a fun movie. Skyfall is by far my favorite. So I would rank that as number 1. I would rank... Man, it's tough. I would probably say Casino Royale is number 2. No Time to Die is definitely number 3. Then Spectre, then Quantum of Solace.
I think that's how I'd rank them too. I don't know though. I think Skyfall and Casino Royale. I think I would probably put Skyfall ahead of Casino Royale, but not by much. I would almost tie them for first. I like both of them a lot.
That's fair. I mean, Casino Royale is such a good movie. I just feel like, at least for me personally, Skyfall through and through feels like such a true Bond film. Not to say that Casino Royale doesn't, but there's so many expectation subversions in that movie. Like it took like the whole film for you to get to truly James Bond. It was kind of like a long origin throughout the whole movie, and that's okay. Like, it was a good movie. Lashif was a great villain. It was very enjoyable. The whole poker setting is very intriguing, exciting. Vesper was a great character. I enjoy all of that very, very much. But Skyfall, I feel like Judi Dench has a much bigger role as M. I love her as M. I mean, I really love her as M. So I love that her role is bigger. It feels a little bit more like a thriller because it's like, what the heck is going on inside of MI6? Like,
Yeah.
They're releasing secrets and da-da-da, whatever. Javier Bardem is a fantastic villain in that movie.
Yes.
And then also, like, I love the sequence where you go to James's childhood home and just all of that. Like, that movie is for sure, for me, the best Daniel Craig Bond movie. But I would say mostly because it feels like more of a true Bond being James Bond movie than Casino Royale does.
Yeah.
But anyways.
All right. Well, that is all I had for facts, so you can take it away.
Okay, wonderful. Well, I don't have a ton of stuff. I'm going to kind of keep it light and breezy. But as you mentioned, the timeline for this film was greatly extended. Production actually began in 2016. They experienced several delays, some of it due to the pandemic. However, there was a lot more that was directly related to director changes, creative differences, directors leaving, and so on. So that delayed the movie quite a bit. Now, moving on. Sorry, I'm trying to pick and choose through my notes here. One thing that I did find that was extremely interesting, as most of us know, if you're listening up to this point, I hope you've seen the movie. If you haven't, this is a spoiler alert. But this is the end of Daniel Craig's James Bond. And for a first time ever in a James Bond film, in the series, James Bond actually dies. This has never happened in any of the Bond films.
I don't know if I knew that.
Yeah, it has never happened. This was a first time for the series. And, I think we can talk about it a little bit more later. But, yeah, I'm going to force myself to talk about it later. But this was a first in the series. And it was a narrative closure. Very emotional, but an end to Daniel Craig's James Bond character. So I thought that was very cool. This was the first time that it's ever happened. Very interesting. Also kind of interesting. So Rami Malek, he played Safin. His character underwent a lot of changes. Even something as simple as the mask that he wears. That's a Japanese theater mask. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. It's NOH. But that's a Japanese theater mask is what he's wearing. Originally, he was his character was designed to be wearing Siberian armor. So, I mean, it's just something as little as that. Very interesting that they went a lot of different directions with his character.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, getting Daniel Craig to sign back on for the movie was quite a challenge. I'm sure if any of you are James Bond fans, remember headlines coming out pretty much after any Bond movie that came out. He would come out and say that he hated doing it. There was one time he compared it to slavery.
Really? I don't know if I knew that.
Yeah, it was really unfortunate because I think he plays the character very well.
Yeah.
I very much enjoy him, and he just would really talk very poorly publicly about the role and doing the next movie. And, you know, you never know what's going on in somebody's head. And obviously press take things quite a bit out of context, and you know they're trying to get clicks, they're trying to get views, so there's always a story that's twisted and so on. But he really was reluctant to even do Spectre, and he did do that, so this was an even bigger challenge for them to get him to come back. But ultimately it was the idea of tying up loose ends and the emotional resonance that the performance could bring if they actually had his character die that got him to sign on to the film. Moving forward, filming locations. In true Bond fashion, there are many filming locations, which I love. I love that this isn't just a green screen or blue screen, but they really were on site. They were filming. So they were in Italy, Jamaica, Norway, the Faroe Islands. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, as well as the United Kingdom. So I thought that was super cool. I love how, you can look at Skyfall or really any of the other Bond movies, but that's the one that immediately comes to mind, where there are all these really different and really unique and cool filming locations, and that's still true here. And that makes me happy. The spectacle of it all, and it really, when I look back and think about the film as it's playing out in my mind's eye, it makes it easy to kind of break up into sequences. Okay, this is when they were in Jamaica, this is when they were in Italy, and so on. So I very much appreciate that, and obviously all of those locations are very beautiful, so it kind of enhances the film and the viewing experience on that front as well. I also have to say, so you noted that Daniel Craig had an onset injury, which was very unfortunate, especially because it wasn't even in a stunt. There was also another mishap on set where a stage at Pinewood Studios exploded.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was during one of the stunts that they were filming, and there weren't a whole lot of details that were available outside of that one of the filming stages actually exploded due to one of the stunts. But there you go. It kind of, I guess, highlights the high stakes natures of a Bond production. And I guess also their focus on practical effects, which I very much appreciate as well. Very interesting here. Do you know who did the score for this film?
Hans Zimmer?
Hans Zimmer.
Yes, I did see that in my research.
We love a good Hans Zimmer score. And he actually was not originally signed on to do this film.
Really?
Really. So a gentleman by the name of Dan Romer, he was originally doing the score for the movie, and he left. There weren't really a lot of details for that, but Hans Zimmer came in mid-production and replaced him, which is very rare. It's not unique to Bond history, but it's only happened a couple times. So thought that was very interesting, and of course, love Hans Zimmer. I mean,
Yes.
does phenomenal work, and that was actually one of the things that I did want to talk about in this movie was that I thought the score was fantastic.
Yeah, for sure.
the music is what of like a Bond film is what makes it so special. I mean, there's a lot of things that make it so special, but the music especially makes it incredibly special. And just the fact that Hans was the one that did that, I love and appreciate, because we are very partial to him. But also, I can hear the song in my mind, kind of their play on the James Bond theme in some of the action sequences where the brass was like very almost aggressive. It's like bum 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 bum. Like the score usually isn't broken like that for the James Bond theme. It's more seamless, if that makes sense. Like the brass isn't as broken up and kind of booming sound like that. It really made it more intense. Yeah. And I really appreciate that and thought that was just super cool. Really loved the depth that it added to the action sequences. I can just think like when they're in Italy and he releases the smoke screen and the Aston Martin, the miniguns come out in the front, and he's doing donuts and shooting them up. Like that's what was playing right then. Yeah. And it's excellent. And keeping on the theme of music and score, we have the main theme for this movie. All of the Daniel Craig movies, as well as other Bond movies, it's not unique to this one. All of the Daniel Craig movies have a pop artist or a rock artist or a very notable artist who does the main theme for the movie. So, we've covered Casino Royale, which was, what is his name? Chris Cornell. He did the theme for that, who's super talented rock star. Then Skyfall, we have, what is her name, dear? Adele. Yes, Adele did the theme for Skyfall.
Oh, yeah.
And then for No Time to Die, we have Billie Eilish.
Our girl.
Yes, Billie Eilish did the theme for No Time to Die, and she's also the youngest artist ever to perform a Bond theme, which also won a Grammy before the film's release. So super cool that Billie did this song and did the movie, just because we enjoy her music. So we're already a fan of her. Also, the fact that she did it when she's 18 is just crazy. But also, like, she became a huge star when she was like 15, 16, which is also crazy. But that's not what we're talking about. So yeah, she released it when she's 18, and it won a Grammy. Well deserved. I have to say, honestly, out of all the Daniel Craig movies, this one's by far my favorite theme. Like, for sure. Like, it's not even close. This one is by far my favorite theme. But she's also, for the first time ever in a Bond film, her voice was used as part of the score. Specifically in the sequence where later on in the movie, they're on the island, and James is getting Dr. What is her name?
I'm bad with names.
Yes, the girl he loves.
Madeline.
Swan, Dr. Swan. He gets Dr. Swan and his daughter. Good job, babe. Gets Dr. Swan and his daughter into the boat. You can actually hear Billie's voice. Just kind of like, she's not singing any words, but just kind of like the melody, like she's carrying that tune. They've never done that before in a Bond film. So I thought that was super cool.
Yeah.
And I think that's really about all I have. One of the last things that I have, I just thought it was interesting, is that Safin, his lair was inspired by Tadao, I'm not sure how you say it, Tadao Ando's architecture and Ken Adam designs. So I'm not familiar with either of those guys, but if you're an architecture nerd out there, maybe that is very interesting to you. But it was interesting to me, at least notable, because Safine's lair was very iconic.
It
I feel
was.
like it's very memorable, like kind of the whole sand zen garden, like the guys are raking the sand. Like it was very cool, very unique, and very memorable. And that's very important to a Bond villain. So I thought that was worth mentioning. And I think that's where I'm going to stop.
Okay.
So, Emily, on a scale of 1 to 100, how would you rate No Time to Die?
I actually want to hear yours first
Okay.
this time.
All right, that's fair. I really wish I kind of would have gone back and listened to our Skyfall episode to find out what I gave that, because I certainly don't want to give a higher score to No Time to Die. But I did not do that, and I'm going to just answer honestly and how we always do on the podcast, which is just kind of our gut feeling, having watched the movie recently. I would give it, man, this is tough. I'm going to say a 94.
Okay.
I'm going to say a good, solid 94. What would you give it?
I was going to say a 91.
Okay.
Yeah, I know that I scored Skyfall higher than that. So that's one reason why, because I too wish I would have gone back because I don't remember. But yeah, I feel like that's still a good score because it is still a good movie, but it's not my favorite Bond film because I do know too that because we covered Casino Royale on here too, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so I also wanted to make sure that that was scored higher because I love that one too. So
Yes. And I mean, honestly, I could give it a rating anywhere from probably 91 to 94. I would not feel bad about any of those. And, you know, we don't try to overly scrutinize our scores here. It's just conversational. It's fun. And we're just, like I said, in the moment, off the cuff, kind of giving it our gut feeling. But yeah, I would be content with any of those scores. It's a solid movie. It's a really good, enjoyable Bond film. But, you know, it doesn't quite leave me with the same well-rounded overall feeling that I had when I watched Skyfall. And I very much enjoy it. But like Casino Royale is such a different Bond movie. And Skyfall is the true Bond film for me, and this one is so different too because we have the death of James Bond. Like I can't compartmentalize it with the other ones. I can't compare it just because it's such a different feeling.
right.
It's such a good movie, but for me, like when I watch it, I'm left feeling like, man, like I hate this movie, but I love this movie. I hate that it makes me so sad. Like I knew even before we watched the movie for the first time, which when we rewatched it in preparation was not the first time we watched it, but I knew before we watched it the first time that Daniel Craig's James Bond died. And I still cried.
Yeah.
And then in rewatching it, I cried again. And like, I hate it so much because it's so heart-wrenching.
Yeah.
It's such a sad story.
Well, I mean,
And-
it's like you said the other day when we watched it, like after it was over, you stood up and you said, I hate this movie.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? Like, what did I say? I was like, why? And you said, it's just such a great movie or something like that.
It is. And it's like, it makes me so sad. And I think more than anything, I would attribute that to Safine. And I guess Blofeld a little bit too, played by Christoph Waltz, the main villain.
Why did
of
I think it was
Spectre.
pronounced Blofeld? Am I just making that up in my head?
Maybe. I mean, we're pretty close, potato. Regardless, I mean, I think what's so... I mean, the reason it's so sad is, yes, I mean, James dies, but that's not why it's so sad. Like, it's very sad because of that. You know, when you see one of your heroes die, like, it's very sad. But the reason, like, it rips my heart out is because James's whole career, as far as the movies go, Daniel Craig's movies go, has been an uphill battle for him to try and find the quiet life, I guess, to gain peace. And, he's always kind of going back and forth between retirement, not retiring, and being in love, not being in love. And, you had Vesper and in the very first movie, and that one's so sad. And just the betrayal.
Right.
And the true love. She truly loved him, but, that was such a layered and complex story going on there. And ever since then, it's been the same way, every single movie. But this one feels like the penultimate one, obviously because it's his last movie, but it's so connected with Spectre. You get to have the love story of him and Madeline Swan over 2 movies, which is fantastic. I love that it's more fleshed out, that it's not just this movie's Bond girl, that she's from another movie. You have more time that you spent with these characters and their relationship. And I really, really appreciate and enjoy that. But more than anything, what just absolutely stinks about this movie is that, I guess from the get-go, James is happy with her.
Yeah.
And then he doesn't know that if he can trust her, because he's in the same place. He's in Italy, where Vesper betrayed him.
Right.
And so then, he goes to Vesper's grave to basically say, goodbye, I'm moving on with my life. And then the grave explodes, which, by the way, that is an intense explosion.
Yes, it is.
If you rewatch that, in my opinion, there's no way that James doesn't die right there. There were some pretty big rocks flying back at him very fast.
And the fact that he was able to get back up and then outrun a bunch of guys.
It's pretty insane.
Yeah.
But, from the get-go, we have him in this setting that's hard for him to be in anyways, but he's saying his goodbyes. He's moving on with his life. He's done with this. He's happy. He's moving forward with Madeline. Well, then, things go south, as they typically do. And he doesn't know if he can trust Madeline. Well, and then he finally gets to the point of saying, okay, I believe you, but you're not safe with me. We have to say goodbye. So he puts her on the train, sends her away. And then, fast forward quite a bit through the movie, and we get the confession from Blofeld that she did nothing. It was me the whole time, James. I just wanted to ruin your life. You had this one speck of happiness. I just wanted to take it from you.
Yeah.
So that sucks. That's so evil.
Right.
That's so selfish. And I know it's there were a lot of people that were very critical of Spectre, specifically because of their choice and how they used Blofeld and the narrative behind those things. And I don't really want to get into them because I feel like it's going to bog down the conversation and get us very much off track. But they very much intentionally killed off Blofeld in this movie. And it was kind of a way to say to fans, we're sorry. So I get it, but it really stinks that there was just such a moment for James to experience, and then to have his heart ripped out because of that, and then to find out that, hey, it was just because I wanted to ruin your life. I know a lot of people don't love Blofeld and the studio's choice of using him, but that's evil. That's such an evil thing to do. Because it's real and that can happen. And, it's obviously what Thanos did in the Avengers is very evil and selfish, but that's fantasy. That's and obviously this is fake too, but this could happen.
Right. It's a little more realistic than Thanos snapping and wiping out half the population.
And that's why it's man, this is so mean.
Yeah.
And so then beyond that, what makes it even worse is then Safine, who not only takes Madeline and who we find out is James's daughter, from him. He takes them from him, but then he makes it so that James can never see them again. without killing them.
Yeah.
Said, you made me do this. I'm sorry. That's why, like, man, I just like, it just gets me going. That's why it's so emotional, is because like he loves these women, these girls, and it's his, effectively, it's his wife and daughter. And he finally knows that it's his daughter, and he's just getting to the point where he can get away from this and just, I'm done, and I'm going to spend my life with you, and we're going to be happy together. We're going to raise our daughter together.
Right.
And now he can never see her again, never see either of them again without risking, well, it's really not a risk, it's a guarantee. He will kill them. And that to me is like, I don't care who you are. I don't care what you say about any of the Bond villains and how they were portrayed on screen. This is single-handedly the most evil thing that any of the Daniel Craig Bond villains have done.
Right.
Period. Like, that is so dastardly, and I'm struggling for the words here, because it's so vile. It's so egregious that you would keep somebody from being able to be with their family without them being killed. So yeah, I guess I'm kind of going in circles here. One thing that was a major criticism of this film was that Rami Malek's villain was kind of a disappointment to the audience, because
Really?
they thought he was going to be a bigger presence.
Gotcha.
And so, like, I get it. I understand kind of that film critique. It's not necessarily a bad critique of the film, but I guess just in favor of the argument that, hey, you can have your critique of their utilization of the character and this and that and whatever, but this guy is evil.
Right.
Like, he is truly evil, and that's why it makes me hate this movie. But, like, I love this movie. I don't hate it, but it hurts so much because of his actions. And obviously the death of James Bond. So, anyways, yeah, it's just a really gut-wrenching movie, but ultimately a fantastic send-off for the character.
I agree. Do we want to talk favorite scenes?
Yeah, I've been talking for a while. I'd like to hear some of your thoughts or just your dialogue on the movie in general.
Well, I have to say, I am so glad that they brought Felix back. I hate that he dies, but I love that he's part of this movie as well. I'm trying to think how many he's part of. Is it just...
I know he's in Casino Royale. He's in this one. I think he's in Quantum of Solace as well.
He's not Inspector.
I know, yeah, he's not Inspector, and I don't think he's in Skyfall. But I do think he was in Quantum of Solace.
Yeah, I think you're right. But yeah, I am so glad that they brought him back. I love him.
Yes. Jeffrey Wright's just a great actor.
He is. He gets the best roles in like every movie he's in, I think.
Yes. But he also is just like, his character is interesting. Like, he's not trying to be James Bond, but also he's kind of like the CIA counterpart of James Bond, and he's an enjoyable character to watch on screen.
Yeah.
And his chemistry with Bond has always been great. So yeah, I love that he's back and he's in this movie.
And then I also really like all of the scenes. I mean, she's only in there for probably like 10 minutes, but I love all of the scenes with Paloma. Is that her name?
Yes, Paloma.
Yes. I love all of her scenes. I think I love how quirky she is and how like funny she is without trying to be funny. And
yes.
Like you were saying earlier, I think her chemistry with Daniel Craig is amazing. So yes, I really like all of her scenes.
Yeah.
I really like the whole sequence too of when James Bond and Madeline and her daughter, the name is escaping me right now of her daughter.
Yeah.
But when they're like trying to flee, just that
Yes.
whole sequence of them driving and you see the two trucks like pass them
Yes.
and keep going, and then all of a sudden they're following them. Like you see them not turn around, but you see them appear over the hill and
Yes.
start following them, and you think that they got rid of them because James like runs them both off the road.
Yes.
But then all of a sudden there's like a dozen or more
Right.
vehicles. So, and then like when they finally kind of get into the woods and abandon the vehicle, and he leaves the girls there and like is trying to distract the people like by firing shots off as he's running. And
Yeah.
I really like that whole sequence, especially when he takes the, what's it called? Like the cord from the,
Yes. The tow line.
and
Yeah.
like wraps it around the tree and totally clotheslines a guy.
Yeah.
And then makes the vehicle that what's his face is in flip.
Logan Ash.
Yes.
Yes.
And then he just crushes him with his own truck.
Yes. Yeah. No, the whole forest sequence in general is maybe one of my favorite scenes in the movie, just because like, yes, it's an action sequence, but it's also not this like super fast-paced action sequence. There's kind of breathing room in between the action. Like you get to be with James as he's like getting the tow line set up, and like I think he only maybe has to fight like 8 guys if you're counting the passengers and stuff, and it's probably less than that. It might only be 6. Like there's, not to say that there's not that much going on, but like it's not one of those one where it's like there's 50 guys and he's got to get through the building, and it's just like this, you know, super high intense adrenaline pumping action sequence. Like, but it's a really good action sequence that you kind of get to have drawn out, and it's maybe unique a little bit in that way, and I really enjoy that.
Yeah. And then another one that I like is when it's toward the beginning of the movie when that James basically thinks that Madeline betrayed him, and they, you know, end up getting into his car and driving, basically fleeing, trying to escape all of these other guys. And then they stop and are surrounded. And sorry, I'm not doing a great job of explaining this, but when they're all like, they're in the car and just everybody opens fire on the car, but then the one guy, again, I don't remember his name, with the eye.
I think they refer to him as Cyclops.
Yes, you're right. When he's just shooting over and over and over again at that one spot.
Yeah.
And James is just frozen. Like, just like,
well, because he's in
very,
disbelief.
yeah,
because
he's just like
he genuinely
stoic.
thinks that Madeline betrayed him.
Yeah.
And he's here again.
Yeah.
You know, with his lover that has just sold him out, and, you know, he can't hardly take it that, you know, I don't know what to do anymore.
Yeah. So just, I like how it kind of puts you in this like really tense position as a viewer, because we're like, is he just going to let them both die? Like, what is happening right now? Why is he not doing anything? And just like Madeline, like pleading with him, like, please do something. And he finally does, obviously. And then that's when he like, it's the crazy scene where he has the guns in his headlights or whatever, and like whips around, whatever. But I really like that scene too. Yeah, I think that's about all that I can think of off the top of my head. But I love that he has a daughter.
Yes, I agree.
But also hate it for the fact that, one, he didn't get to watch her like grow. Like, obviously not that she's like grown up in this movie, but like she's probably 4, I would guess 4 or 5.
Yeah.
And then also just that like he ends up dying and doesn't get to spend more than just that little bit of time with her, which was running for their lives basically. But yeah, I do love that he has a daughter. I think it makes that just the whole sequence with her that much more impactful. But yeah.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think it was a great character development for James to be a father. And, you know, I really feel like over the course of all of the Daniel Craig films that we get to enjoy him grow as a character, which should always be the case for any movie that has the same character. You know, if you have a saga involving the same person, they should experience growth in one form or another. I think that goes without saying, but it kind of, I guess, goes against everything for James Bond to be a father, right? Like the kind of antithesis of the character is that he's a ladies' man, and he, I mean, even the term like being a Bond girl, like it's a different girl each movie, type thing. So, I really like kind of the maturing of the character and that he truly loved Madeline and he wanted to spend the rest of his life with her. They were in some very unfortunate circumstances. Things changed. They did get to reunite. He did get to be with his daughter. And I mean, he didn't even find out that it was his own at first, but he was protecting her, which is great. But to then, see just how loving and protective he is of her is fantastic.
Yeah.
So I really, really enjoy just that whole storyline, that device that they use in the film. And I kind of spoke already about the sequences in the forest. I really enjoy that as well. Safine's first appearance is crazy.
Yes, I agree.
Very intense, and I love that. Like, it scares you that we see Madeline as a little girl. Her mom is unfortunately, she's drunk on the couch, and asking her daughter to get wine for her. And we learn pretty quickly through the director showing us rather than telling us that this is not an uncommon thing. Because when her mom spills the wine, she doesn't even ask her to go get I think it was alcohol or peroxide to go to clean it up, to get it out of the carpet. She just instinctively knew. So we learned very quickly that this was not an uncommon occurrence and that she was probably brought up in some very not desirable circumstances. But then, as she's kind of doing that, there's just like the shudder and the music very quickly, kind of has like that shriek. And you see Safine on screen with the mask in the window looking at him, and they're like out in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
Very scary, very intense, very fast. And then, he breaks into the house and kills her mother. And then she kills him, actually. Madeline does, or at least we think. But anyways, not to get too much into all of that, just to say that his entrance is very intense.
Yes, it is.
I don't know that there's a whole lot else I want to touch on. There's a lot that I guess I could talk about. I guess maybe I will touch on one final thing. Okay, so Daniel Craig, and or I guess I should say James Bond. James Bond, when he's on the island, and he's very much fighting an uphill battle to get the blast shields retracted, I guess would be the right word. He ends up going through the process and getting them opened up and everything. And that was basically like the last thing that he had to do before he could try and escape, which was fantastic. But it's like, okay, he's finally there, and now it's time for him to get off the island, and then maybe he can be reunited with Madeline and his daughter. Well, then as he's leaving, the blast shields start to close again. So he goes back up, and that's when he runs into Safine again. It's just them on the island. There's nobody else. And that's where the heartbreak occurs, and Safine throws it on him, and the whole nanotech virus thing where he's no longer able to see Madeline or his daughter without killing them. So that takes place. Also, the fight between them is fantastic.
James breaks
his arm. Very
I
brutal.
I can't even watch that.
Oh, man. It's very intense. But, then he has to go back. He gets the blast shields open. And then that's really when we have our final goodbye. Oh, man. That scene hurts so bad. It hurts so good. just because, you have him talking to Q and saying, hey, put Madeline on. And he gets to have that dialogue with her. Kind of reminds me of Captain America in the very first Captain America movie, the first Avenger, when he's talking to Peggy, hey, I got to put it in the water. That scene always makes me cry too, just because of the sacrifice.
Yeah.
No greater love is there than this, that you lay your life down for a brother. So it always hits home on a deep level whenever that plays out on screen. And just being able to hear the dialogue between him and Madeline is very intense. And I love that this movie, and I think a lot of the other Daniel Craig movies, make you feel the uphill battle that the character is fighting. As far as a movie goes and action and so on, it should never feel easy. It should feel like it's exhausting to be in a fight. It should feel like it is a fight and it's not just expertly executed every single time, because if not, then there's no challenge, and that's not always true to life. It's actually, I would say, more rare than it is realistic. So I very much appreciate just the whole, it feels like, I guess, an old dog kind of on his last leg as he's going through all of these challenges, and it hurts, and it's played out perfectly for me.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. Well, that was the last thing that I wanted to touch on. So I guess I'll ask real quick, is there anything else you want to mention?
I'm good.
Okay. Well, guys, thank you for listening. It's been a lot of fun talking about No Time to Die. Emily and I are big 007 fans. This is our third 007 movie that we've talked about. I think we've talked about one in every single season, which is fantastic. So if you like Skyfall, if you like Casino Royale, go back and check those episodes out. Hopefully they were just as good as this one, maybe better. But we appreciate you guys. We hope you've had a really good week. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and we hope you come back next week to join us as we talk about Captain America: Civil War.
It's a good one. It is streaming on Disney Plus, and I'm guessing that's probably it.
That would be my assumption.
Yes, but it's worth it. I would argue probably one of the best, if not the best, Captain America movie.
Yeah, well, if you want to hear us discuss and debate whether it is or is not the best Captain America movie, come back next week, because we're going to be talking about it. If you want to brush up on your Captain America movies, go over to Disney Plus, check them out. Definitely watch Civil War, because that's the one we'll be discussing. But we're excited, and we hope you guys are too.
See you then.
Bye.